Yes, you are. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB, streaming on Rumble, streaming on X, streaming on YouTube, and streaming on that social media platform that begins with a F, but we don't like saying it. And we're also streaming at the mothership, WYAB.com. So glad you all are tuning in today. We've got a crazy show, planes, trains, yeah, automobiles and helicopters too. It's all in there. It's a plethora of transportation madness. Look, if you want to be a part of the show today, the number is going to be 601-879-0002. And the text line is open. It's already blowing up. I absolutely love the text line. It's 601-879-5060. Communicating all throughout the day, getting texts at 2:30 in the morning, telling me about ideas for stories and stuff. And I just want to say I really, really appreciate all the feedback and info that you guys give me, opening my eyes, getting to see new and different things, trying to break down the mockery, ridicule, and scorn that is often used against conservatives in our ideas and the way we think about things. And we're just peeling back the onion one layer at a time. Nice, slow, and easy. Look, scorners try to set a city aflame, but the wise try to turn away the anger. And when this came across this, I got this at 2:30 in the morning. Somebody texted it to me, and it's a clip of Anderson Cooper on CNN, and we're going to play that, and that's going to probably drive the first good half, 3/4 of the show. But this just led me down a rabbit hole that I wasn't expecting to go down. I don't know if y'all noticed this or not, but there have been floods in Texas. We're all very aware of New Mexico, Arkansas, Illinois, and North Carolina. And I'm not talking, you know, little flood, flash flood thing here. That we're talking like full up flood, flood, flood. Bad stuff. And where is it coming from? It's just not natural. And like, so for me, when I see this, I'm a data person. I'm a truth seeker. I want to see the raw data. So I go to the radar returns and I watch how the storm forms. I can see the low and high pressure. I can see the fronts moving through. I can walk people through all the science and the math of how all that works. And two of these floods, particularly the one in Arkansas and the one in Chicago, is just astounding to me. It's like the weather is not acting like normal weather does, just like the flood in Texas, where those storms just popped up and they didn't move. They just sit there and they intensify, and it just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And what fires me up even more is I'm a military dude. Um, one of the missions that we had when I was in the 965th AWACS Tinker Air Force Base was when Katrina hit New Orleans. We were flying sorties, air traffic control over New Orleans, making sure that we deconflicted the rescue helicopters from CNN, trying to get that picture to put on the live feed, and it was just nuts. But it infuriates me. I get really fired up when people start saying America wasn't there to take care of herself. FEMA wasn't ready to go. The local people weren't ready to go. And what CNN is doing is what I see the typical left always does. They start a fire, they fan it, they see if it catches a blaze, causes a wild, out of control forest fire, and then they move on to the next thing. And I just got this put in front of me, and I figured I would put out this fire for Anderson Cooper and CNN so we can all move along. And at the same time, we can educate ourselves so that the next time we see some hot garbage come across our timeline, because, I don't watch CNN. I get clips sent to me of it. I won't give them any ratings boost. I won't give them any time of day. But, they are out there. And unfortunately, there are mind-numbed robots out there on the left who sit there and take their marching orders from CNN and MSNBC, and that's just how they roll. And I know that there are good people who also not only watch that, but they'll watch Fox News, or they'll watch CBS or ABC or NBC, and they'll be sitting there trying to form a balanced view, like most of us who are in the middle. And they're like, well, this kind of makes sense. I wonder if this is really true. But we've got to talk about this, and we're going to break it down. So without further ado, Mr. Anderson Cooper in 3, 2, I'm sorry, 1.
So according to 4 officials inside FEMA, that federal response may not have been as fast as it might have been.
Okay, Anderson, we got to stop right there. According to 4 officials, who are these 4 officials? That might have worked during the Biden administration. That might have worked in the first Trump administration when Trump was still trying to figure out how all this government stuff works. That certainly worked during the terms of the Obama administration, where unnamed officials gave comments off the record to the press for a story. If we're being truthful, kind of like how the Epstein files were released to Axios, who said that the case was closed. Who leaked that? I don't know. But I honestly think anymore, if we are going to give serious consideration to what I would call legacy media outlets, whether they be cable or over-the-air news, we need to have cited officials or cited sources, because these unnamed anonymous sources aren't doing anybody any good whatsoever. They're not. They're just filling us full of garbage. It's not helping anybody. All it's doing is trying to light a fire to get everybody fired up and start getting agitated.
They say that a new rule that any expenditure over $100,000 needed sign-off from Secretary Noem slowed the federal response. These sources tell us that FEMA's deployment of urban search and rescue teams, which are typically deployed in anticipation they might be needed, instead was delayed until Monday.
Stop. That's not how that works. I've reached out to 2 people who are integral to the deployment of FEMA teams, and I'm hoping to have them on the show either next week or the week after. I can't get them on today. I tried to get them on tomorrow. They're too busy. But I did get an hour-and-a-half phone call. And there is a timeline that has to happen in order for FEMA to deploy the troops. And we're going to start with that. And we are going to use America's governor, Ron DeSantis, as the example. That hurricane last year that was coming through, DeSantis declared a state of emergency before the thing even hit, and immediately said that he was resource scarce. There's a term for it, and I don't know the term for it. I apologize for that, but there's a term that you have to go through and exhaust all of your local resources before FEMA will come in and help. I do realize that there is a difference between a hurricane and a flash flood. You got a lot more warning with a hurricane than you do a flash flood. But the way FEMA works is still the same. The governor has to declare a state of emergency, number 1. Once he or she, because there are good female governors out there too, let's not play that game, libs. Once he or she declares that state of emergency, she then has to make a request to FEMA for the assets they think they need. It's just not like calling FEMA and you're bringing in battalion, full numbered armies to come do stuff. There are teams. There are 2 types of teams. One's between 40 and 45 personnel, FEMA team, and one's about 80, 85 personnel. They are completely self-sufficient for 3 days when they get on scene, but it takes time to get there. It's not like, okay, the FEMA team is you call in the FEMA teams and now they got to get organized and ready to go, and that's within they have a 4-hour window to get ready. So these are civilians who are doing other types of jobs who are on the FEMA teams, and all of a sudden, whoop, they get activated, they report, they load up their trucks, and they convoy, or they get flown in to the area. They have vehicles, boats, they have the whole kit and caboodle. But the But important thing about this is it's not just instantaneous FEMA showing up. If you have a forest fire, as an example, you're not gonna call in the rescue swimmers. There are different teams that have different skill sets, is as it was explained to me. They have different ways that they go in, and the way that they deploy is different as well. Some are primarily convoy, they drive the semis down there, and some of them are primarily airlift. Guess what? It depends. But if you listen to good old Anderson Cooper here, you think that it's just a hop, skip, and a jump, and the government's there to help. It's not. And in fact, we in Mississippi know we can't depend on FEMA. We can't even depend on the state government. We know that they try, and I'm not bashing Tate. I'm not bashing anybody in the state government. MEMA, you guys are all great. But the truth of the matter is, as soon as a hurricane blows through our neighborhood, as soon as a tornado blows down our street, the first people on the scene are our neighbors and our local police, sheriffs, fire department. They're the first responders. And we all know that our first responders, some of them are better equipped than others, fam. Some of them got all the cool toys, and some of them don't. And as we continue to break this down, we are going to see that Texas had assets that were begging to be deployed, but the local political leaders didn't let them do this. And it's so infuriating that I'm agreeing with the union. Someone send that up to Algonquin Township. They're going to freak out. I'm agreeing with the firefighter union in Austin, Texas. Because when you hear what they wanted to do and what the political P-brain denied, it will infuriate you. Because the bottom line is that the United States government, it's true, we do have the best toys, whether we know about them or not. We have the best toys, and we have the best people, we have the best equipment. We truly are the best. We are the best. There's nobody else better. But it takes time and planning to get that ball in motion. And as we can see here, and we didn't even get through the first 15 seconds of Anderson Cooper here on CNN, and we're already blowing him up. Look, I got to take my first break. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. We will be right.
You'll find U.S. and Mississippi flags in all sizes. And yes, that new Mississippi flag is available along with international flags and all state and territorial flags. They can build your flagpole and repair that ragged old flag. It's at CompleteFlags.com. That's CompleteFlags.com.
I've always believed that being your jeweler means being there for you with the highest quality jewelry repair and custom design services in the state. I'm John Ravenstein.
I'm Corey Ravenstein. That's why here at Juniker Jewelry Company, you'll find the largest team of fine jewelry professionals and artisans in Mississippi.
Only here at Juniker's will you find 4 master goldsmiths. We do everything in-house. Your jewelry never leaves our shop.
We even have jewelry designers on staff to help you create that one-of-a-kind piece you've always dreamed of.
Juniker's master craftsmen set the stones, work the metals, and polish everything to perfection.
There is almost nothing we can't create or fix like new again.
For Mississippi's finest jewelry repair and true old-world craftsmanship, come see us at Juniker Jewelry Company.
Our trusted jewelry professionals are here for you.
Juniker Jewelry Company, Mississippi's direct diamond importer. 1485 Highland Colony Parkway, just south of 463 in Madison, and JunikerJewelry.com.
Hey everybody, it's John at Two Gun Tactical. We're having Kim Wade Wednesdays at both locations. So you come in and mention Kim Wade on a Wednesday, you get half price range fees. Hey, if you're a member, we're going to give you an extra free target just for mentioning Kim Wade Show. Come on in and work on your shooting and exercise that 2A right that if we don't fight for it, we won't have it much longer. It's twoguntactical.com. That's the number 2, guntactical.com.
Social Security belongs to you. You work hard and pay into it. So it's only fair for you to expect to get the money you've earned to help cover living expenses and bills, and not for politicians to use as a piggy bank. That's why AARP is fighting to protect your Social Security so you get what you've earned. Learn more at aarp.org/youearnedit. That's aarp.org/youearnedit. Paid for by AARP.
And we're back on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. If you want to be a part of the program, you can call in at 601-879-0002. I neglected my text line, but I see there's about 6 of them there. The number at the text line is 601-879-5060. Look, we got to get back to Anderson Cooper, but before we do, I got to tell you about my man Bruce at Eye Gear Optical, located at 2630 Highway 80 in Pearl. I know I'm coming up for a new set of glasses. I'm waiting until I get my new prescription because I'm not going to go get a new set of glasses when my prescription is going to be updated in a month anyway. But that's where I'm going, and that's where you should go too. Good local service, personalized, customized care, great selection of frames. And like I said, the customer service, it's so hard to get customer service at anything anymore. And Bruce is there Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 2. Go see him, and when you need a new set of glasses, let him know that Andy sent you. You won't be done wrong at Eye Gear Optical in Pearl. So we got to get back to my man Anderson Cooper, and we are walking through the process of what it actually takes to get FEMA assets to the disaster location. So first things first, you got to have a disaster declaration. You can either do it before the storm actually gets there, if you know it's coming like a hurricane, or as soon as you realize you're in a situation, you have that. So Governor Abbott of Texas declared the emergency in the morning of July 4th. The main part of the flood was already rocking and rolling. They realized they had a situation. Within 1 hour, President Trump approved the disaster declaration and whatever you need. So let's continue with this.
3 days after the flood. Now, a source also tells us that a request Texas made for FEMA aerial imagery to aid in the search was also delayed, waiting for Secretary Noem's approval. Now, additionally, multiple FEMA officials say that they were taken aback by the agency's relatively limited response in the immediate aftermath.
The immediate limited response was only due because of the request for assets, and the request for assets were not coming into FEMA. Instead, they were using something called an EMAC, and we're going to get into that. But I want to make sure that I have this all in the right order here. So how the system works now is you have something called the EMAC, and it's called the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. And what this is these are all different private and government-funded groups that go out there and put their services out there saying, hey, if you need help with water rescue, here we are, and this is how much it costs. And Texas was using EMAC to get all this done. It's going to get more infuriating than this, but it worked because from the state of Nebraska, Governor Jim Pillen has directed in deployment of the Nebraska Task Force 1 Urban Search and Rescue Team, USNR, to flood-stricken areas of Texas. This was on July 7th. That's when the EMAC came through. That's when Texas put it out saying, this is what we need. So when you hear them saying they're not getting imagery, that is completely debunked and false. The imagery is there for everybody to see. We as civilians can go get that type of imagery. Not one level. It's one level better than us, but the imagery is there, and it all comes from the same source, which is Planet. They used to be called Planet Labs. They have these satellites, hundreds of them flying around the Earth. They're called doves, white doves, and they are constantly updating the surface imagery of the Earth. So when Anderson Cooper says that, he's not telling the truth. He's literally inciting craziness. He's wanting to instill anger, and that's not how it's supposed to be. But that's what our news media has come to. And that's not how it's supposed to be. So, from what I've been told, and I'm still working on this, but even though Nebraska deployed its government team, from what I've been told, and I'm still working on this, it's not necessarily supposed to be deployed in that way. So, the group went down there for up to 14 days. It's a 45-man team, including 2 canines. They left Lincoln, Nebraska. They arrived in San Antonio in the morning, and it just says that Governor Pillen and Governor Abbott are working together on that. Hey, great job. But this is where it really starts to get infuriating. And I want to make sure I click this all in the right order. But this is where it really starts to get infuriating. And I want to make sure Austin, Texas, less than 2 hours from the main flood zone, has an urban search and rescue team. Well, here, just let me play this and let you hear it.
Plans to host a no-confidence vote for the fire chief. The issue deals with how Chief Joel Baker responded to the recent flooding in Kerrville. The Austin Firefighters Association claims that Chief Baker delayed sending firefighters to help with rescue efforts in Kerrville until it was too late. Union President Bob Nix will speak at 11 a.m. this morning to talk about Baker's decision. Now,
So this is Local 11 in Austin. It is absolutely infuriating to me how you have local search and rescue teams right there asking to go help with the flood the morning of July 4th, ready to go, and the chief says no. The chief says no. Listen to what the union boss says, and you know how I feel about union bosses.
I mean, we balance resources all the time under normal circumstances. A request comes in, the chief never even knows about it. We have commitments with the state to deploy. And so we would say yes, and we would go every time. So, and our special operations division is one of the best in the nation. They balance those resources. We always put Austin first. We always put the local surrounding community first. But we're big enough we can do both. We had small departments sending 10 people. We had people from Mexico coming in to this. We had people from Oklahoma City. All the major departments in Texas went, except for us. And I want to mention this really.
Do you hear that? That's why you can't trust the government. It's why you can never, ever put your faith that the government is on the way. Austin had they had some of the best resources available, and they're less than 2 hours away. They had some of the best on the morning. Now, I have to back up because they were saying we have to let's finish listening to Anderson Cooper, and then we're just going to completely drop a Mark 57 on his head and blow him up with a mop, and we'll be done with him.
Of the disaster. CNN has reached out to FEMA for comment. So far, no reply from the agency. However, a DHS spokeswoman more generally told CNN that FEMA is, in her words, quote, shifting from bloated DC-centric dead weight to a lean deployable disaster force that empowers state actors to provide relief for their citizens.
That's what EMAC is. Although I'm quite certain that this official either A, didn't say that, or B, doesn't like the president. Because even when we're talking about shifting and making government more efficient, we wouldn't be saying something like that right on the back of a disaster. And Anderson Cooper, you're just one of the worst. And the sooner that you get removed, the better. So we have to talk about when Governor Abbott declared the emergency. The first thing they asked for were for search and rescue helicopters. And within 1 hour, helicopters were launched. The Texas National Guard on day one launched 8 Black Hawks. We've kind of talked about the petty officer and the Coast Guard flying his first search and rescue mission, rescuing up to 165 people. That's just incredible. Although it doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure it doesn't surprise any of you who follow our military. Our young men and women are incredible. They're just like every generation, to be quite truthful. Everybody thinks they're going to suck. Everybody thinks that they can't tie their shoes, can't cross the street without holding hands. But when the chips are down and when it's time to go, they step up and they represent their country with pride, dignity, and distinction. It never fails. They're awesome. So the Texas National Guard, who, by the way, comes under control of FEMA and Department of Homeland Security, recorded 237 rescues, including 167 by helicopter, indicating that these helicopters were actively engaged within the first few hours of the disaster. This was backed up by additional 4 Black Hawk helicopters under the Arkansas Air National Guard. So 12 Black Hawks going in and around. And let me tell you, as someone who deconflicts airspace for a living, or who used to deconflict airspace for a living, that many helicopters, keeping them deconflicted so they don't bump into each other and cause a really, really bad day, is a lot of work. And those air traffic controllers who were doing that, because I don't think they had an AWACS on hand, and there certainly wasn't a ground station, military ground station, who specializes in that on hand. That is a lot of work, doing all that deconfliction. They also had 2 MH-65 Dolphin helicopters that were used for evacuation. Those are a larger helicopter that they can pack more people onto. Black Hawk's pretty small. I got to fly on one in Afghanistan. It was insane. It was fun, and I appreciated the ride. But they were great pilots, great dudes, completely professional. But I'm glad that I got on the helicopter, flew, and got home safely. Was grateful and thankful. And if I don't fly on another Black Hawk, I'll be all right. Look, I got to take another break. You're listening to the Andrew Gosso Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. We will continue to break down this non-story. You're listening to the Andrew Gosso Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. We will continue to break down this non-story.
103.9 WYAB.
Fox News commentary.
Rep. Hakeem Jeffries got into a fight with Photoshop and Photoshop won. I'm Tommy Laren. More next.
ZipRecruiter is the place. ZipRecruiter is the place for talented teachers, savvy software developers, and master mixologists. ZipRecruiter is the place where you meet all these people and more. That's because ZipRecruiter is the place for job seekers who are looking for new opportunities. In fact, ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day, so you can find the right candidates right away. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
These days will do anything to be influencers. Some are pretty good at it, like Crockett, AOC, and Mamdani, but the same cannot be said for House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He posted a photo of himself leaning on a bench in Brooklyn on Instagram, and perhaps in an attempt to look taller or something, he seemingly decided to run the snapshot through Photoshop, and people noticed. The comments on the photo are brutal. Either the benches in Brooklyn are super wavy, or he edited his body to hide in some way, causing the warped result. Now,
the Austin fire chief is under fire, not for what he did. Oh, they were ready. Since Chief Baker sent Fox 7 on. They say it happened.
Oh, it's here.
Deployed days sooner. Some of
I'm Tommy Laren.
The Firefighters Association President Bob Nix. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now.
If you've had an
accident, join us.
Remember Clinton Body Shop.
All right, thank you so much for that. And let's bring in.
Don't be misled by someone telling you that you will have to pay more than your deductible. Our shops hold multiple certifications from the makers of today's vehicles. We are the longest running ICAR Gold Class certified repair facility in Mississippi. We know how to repair your vehicle, and we will work with your insurance company on your behalf. In Clinton and in Richland, we work for you. We take pride in perfection.
Well, I'm sitting here today with one of my favorite clients, Reggie Brumfield. The first time I believe we worked together was around 25 years ago, wasn't it, Reggie?
I remember that time. My wife, Kathy, and I were looking for a home. He sold that house to us, and when we got ready to buy another home, he helped us sell that home and buy another home. So 25 years later, when we decided to purchase another home, your name was the only one in our minds.
601-720-4037, RitaJensen.net.
In today's world, there's a lot of confusion all around us, but you should know the eternal truth is found in Jesus Christ. Every Sunday morning at 7, that eternal truth is explored in the scriptures on the Methodist Bible Hour USA with Gary Bryden, an ordained minister with the Association of Independent Methodists. You'll hear thoughtful study of the scriptures, insightful thoughts, and special music on the Methodist Bible Hour USA every Sunday morning at 7 on 103.9 WYAB.
How do you get the hell out of your life?
You find out about this man by the name of Jesus who went to the cross and gave his life so that we will have a life more abundantly. And if you can receive that love, he will love that hell out of you.
Get on your knees and cry out to the Lord. He hears you right where you are.
Tune in to Get the Hell Out of Your Life every Sunday at 10 a.m.
And welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9, streaming on Rumble, streaming on X, streaming on YouTube, and streaming on that YouTube or that social media platform that begins with an F, but I don't like talking about it. And also at WYAB.com. Look, if you're going to quote the union boss and then you don't quote the union boss, you're going to get the union boss upset at you. So let's go to the union boss real quick and let him get his 2 cents in here, because I actually agree with the union boss, which is causing some people to grow white hair in Illinois. So let's do it.
Right now, Austin, the Firefighters Association President Bob Nix. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And of course, there was a no confidence vote out there that passed. And do you feel the actions in your mind warrants Baker's removal from that post?
Absolutely. It's an absolute failure to lead. And that failure of leadership led to, I believe, in my 37.5 years experience, unnecessary loss of life.
Of course, and there's a little bit of pushback, of course, from the police chief saying he will not step down. I do want to read out some of what they said about what happened over the weekend, talking about this in response, saying the first...
I don't want to get into everything that the chief said because it's a lot of gobbledygook. Long story short, instead of sending the full search and rescue team, they sent 3 rescue swimmers. after the fact, when it went from search and rescue search and rescue to search and recovery. And recovery operations are never fun. That's just the way it is. And the union boss, in his opinion, said the chief dropped the ball, who is a local elected official or elected appointed official. And you know what? Austin could have had a major impact in addition to what the military had in that flood situation in Texas. Absolutely terrible. I wanted to make sure I got all the information on the heat load. So there were a total of 12 helicopters, ended up servicing the flood victims right away, trying to rescue as many people as we could before we had to go to recovery operations. We talked about Petty Officer rescuing 165 people on his first mission and the resources being in place. Yet, when we go to the mainstream media, when we go to CNN, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. There is so much more to this I want to get into. As I was searching for this information on the floods, we've had several callers call in about cloud seeding and meteorology manipulation. And while I believe it exists, I don't like touching it because you're mocked when you do it. You're scorned when you do it. You're ridiculed when you do it. But I'm telling you, the state of Florida has passed legislation specifically forbidding just the stuff that caller Tim from Brandon was talking about, like almost word for word. So there has to be something said to that. There has to be some credence, some relevance, some relativity given to the things that are going on there. And I've got the bill, and during the break, I'm going to tweet it out. I'll get it out there so that you all can read what I read as I was watching this and doing the show prep for today. And my show prep for today, I was ready to go down the Epstein aisle, so to speak, and continue to harp on that. But I just got so infuriated that our mainstream media, not that they're lying to us, but they're trying to incite anger and hatred towards the people who are out there actually doing the job. And guess what? They're having to go out. Austin couldn't get, this is what I found in the show prep too. Austin, Texas could not deploy their search and rescue team to the floods in Texas. But you know who could? The Virginia Beach search and rescue team sent their people. Now tell me, how is that a good use of resources? You've got the city of Austin less than 2 hours away, and you got people on the East Coast, Virginia Beach. Shout out to those Virginia Beach dudes. A lot of them probably former rescue swimmers in the Navy and other special operations types. I bet you that's a pretty slick team. I bet you there's some good dudes involved with that. Not that I know any of them, but we send them from Virginia Beach. How does that make sense? And it doesn't. And here you have this fine, young, distinguished-looking gentleman with white hair telling us, well, FEMA didn't act as quick as it could have. I can tell you, as someone who's been through a flood, when the Fox River flooded in 2017, you work as fast as you can, and nothing goes as fast as you want it to. And we were calling in resources from all over the place. Southern Wisconsin, Northern Illinois flooded. And here I was, and I hadn't even gone through I was just elected. I wasn't on the job a week. Well, maybe a week and a half. And you're dusting off plans that haven't been looked at in years, and you're dusting off stuff like, hey, how did this happen before? Well, we don't know. And that was 2017. So, there are courses out there. There are things that you can do to prepare yourself for this. But one of the things is making sure that the governors in their states, the people, the county emergency management managers, EMA, I'm just using the Illinois example. I'm sure we have it in Copiah County. I'm sure we have it in Hinds County. We have county designates in different districts where we have emergency managers who know what counties and what cities have what resources to get them to deploy as quick as possible to help as many people as possible as quickly as possible. And this did not happen in Texas. And the people who you can't blame is the president and FEMA. because within 1 hour of the state of or the declaration of an emergency, President Trump already signed off on it. And we all heard his words. He said, whatever you need, you've got it. And even some of my friends who despise Trump and are suffering from stage 4 TDS, they're in terminal phase. They even agree. They even agree that when Trump says whatever you got, you need it, Trump's going to make good on that. And he did. So there are all sorts of problems that I'm sure we will find out in the back after wash, the hot rack. We'll figure that out. And those lessons learned will be passed down for future things. But CNN is completely wrong. And I don't feel bad spending the first hour of my show on the 10th of July, 2025, ripping Anderson Cooper's 1 minute and 6 second blurb to shreds. And that's why we say on the show, we're equipping the saints. We're equipping you with the knowledge, with the information, so that you can go out there and I'm not going to say when it happens, because most of us are in a situation where we're surrounded by, most of the time, with like-minded individuals who will sit there and go out and educate themselves and try to further understand what's going on. But should you come across one of these souls who are sadly mistaken, you can lead them home. You can lead them to the light. You can educate them, and who knows? Maybe they'll go change their path. Maybe they'll go down a different route. Hey, it could happen. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll take our last break of the hour. We'll be right back.
Hello, Mike Lindell here, and I'm going to tell you about a pharmacy that I really trust. That's All Family Farm.
Don't you know the pink salt trick recipe yet? Come with me and I'll teach you. This is the secret to melting.
Sure. Councilman Stokes. Sure. Councilman Stokes, your comments are spot on. And I have sat down with Chief Wade and said, look, whatever limitations or restrictions or whatever handcuffs were placed on you in terms of doing your job, those handcuffs are off. Sure.
Oh, yeah. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Listener texted in asking what an EMAC was. So if you just go to emacweb.org, it talks about what an EMAC is. And what it basically is it offers assistance during a government-declared state of emergency. And these can be all different types of things, whether it be GIS services, imaging services, search and rescue services, whatever you might need. And this originally went into effect back in 1996, but only recently have they really started using them more and more, where the shift has gone away from using full up FEMA task force to go ahead and more plug and play type of packages. They say the strength of EMAC is the quality that is distinguishes itself from other plans and compacts in line in its governance structure, its relationship with the federal agencies, national organizations, states, counties, and territories, local cities. And it's more, they say that they're more willing to actually respond to stuff because they're local, so that they understand the lay of the land a lot easier. So go ahead and check it out, educate yourself. It's always good to have that information and education. Something else that happened, and this is coming and I'm shifting gears a little bit because in the next hour, we're definitely going to talk about, I've got a story from trains.com. Yes, we are scouring the web for the news that is important to all of us here in Mississippi and around the United States too. But this is coming from trains.com. And it's going to be an interesting story to tell. But last night, there was a meeting in Jackson, this Jackson City Council, and Mayor Horn had something to say. And this is coming from our buddy Kingfish over at Jackson Jambalaya. Listen to this.
Sure. Councilman Stokes, your comments are spot on. And I have sat down with Chief Wade and said, look, whatever limitations or restrictions or whatever handcuffs were placed on you in terms of doing your job, those handcuffs are off. We want you to do your job.
They're clapping for the police in Jackson, Mississippi. Let that sink in. Whatever happened to defund the police? Cuffs are off in Jackson, and I think it's a great thing. We need here. Just let the man talk.
And I will also say that it's a little too early for us to figure out where we're top heavy and where there's some potential cost savings that can be experienced and realized in various departments. We're going to be looking very closely at that as we try to put this budget together. But our top priority is public safety. Amen. We have to have more troops, more sworn officers on the streets. They have
more troops, more sworn officers on the street. Amen to that. It's going to push the crime away. It's just how it works. Criminals are wimps. They want to go where the easy targets go. If they know that the place is heavily policed, they'll just go somewhere else. Well, then you're going to push them away from it. Yep, but we're pushing them out of Jackson.
Have to be better trained. They have to be better equipped, and they have to have the best technology. And not only for the police department, but for our fire department as well. in November of last year, the city was delivered a letter saying that you're about to go from a level 3 fire rating to a level 4. And that's going to hit everybody in their back pockets because your insurance is going to go up.
And this is what happens. And look, conservative Republican, I'm wearing my Trump hat, signed junk. I like the comment, appreciate it. But what I'm saying is that when you have good leaders, at least saying the right things and inspiring people to do better, that's good. Good on Mayor Horn. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm voting for you next week. Not that I could, but it's such a breath of fresh air that we've got a mayor in our state's largest city, our capital, who is taking things seriously and, dare I say, will be taken seriously. Not just by the thugs and criminals out on the street, but by our state and local elected officials who have ties and control the purse strings. How great would it be to see our Jackson police out there just doing what they need to do to get the job done? Cleaning up the streets, making Jackson a destination again for Mississippi instead of everybody running off to Rankin or to Warren or to Madison County. We stay here. That's leadership. Now, let me ask you this as we get ready to round out this hour. How many of you would have known the mayor said that if you weren't listening to the local radio show on the little old WYAB? The truth is, it probably wouldn't have been talked about at all. Because that's good news. And good news doesn't sell newspapers or TV ads or radio commercials. Well, it does sell radio commercial, but I just think that's the type of quality of people we have hosting the radio show here at WYAB. Whether that be Chip in the morning, Clay in late morning, myself, Kim Wade, Sean and Lindsay. You're listening to WYAB, Andrew Gosper Show. First hour is in the can. When we get back, we're talking trains. Oh, yeah.
Visit progressive.com. Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-230-2777. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-230-2777. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-230-2777. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-230-2777 or
Local news and weather brought to you by Mississippi Energy Services. We're your fast, affordable, and friendly generator service company. msenergy.us. msenergy.us.
Some federal money comes our way. Who gets it? 89 is the high today, and it's humid with a 70% chance for rain and storms by this afternoon. By tonight, that rain chance is down to 20% with a low at 72. Friday, the rain chance is back at 70% with a high at 92. A 40% chance Saturday. You've got news on 103.9 WYAB. I'm Chris Davis. Relief is on the way for Mississippi farmers, especially the ones who had losses because of the drought in 2023, says Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. The money is coming through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Around $16 billion will be shared by farmers in several states, including Mississippi. If you've been following the story of Tony Morris, the 71-year-old man from Terry who was getting a divorce from his wife in August of 24 and who shot and killed her before that divorce was final, he has been found guilty of first-degree murder of Kathleen Morris. The sentence, life in prison. DA Jody Owens says anger ended the 31-year marriage. In Yazoo, the motive is still unclear, but police say a woman was shot in the head there Saturday at a house at 4th and Maney, and they are still looking for whomever did it. They suspect that was the same person who shot up her car. The woman is in the hospital, her condition not released publicly. 3 suspected malefactors locked up in Grenada County, suspected of dealing drugs and having stolen guns. 46-year-old Terry Braxton, 46-year-old Jennifer Williams, and 26-year-old Jadarius Tigger Taylor, who had tried to run but was caught in the woods during the raid, are all facing long lists of charges. Hattiesburg is the latest city in Mississippi to put a curfew in place, and that's because of several shootings. More news in 1 hour on 103.9 WYAB. I'm Chris Davis.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are the individual views and opinions of the people expressing them and do not necessarily reflect those of this radio station, its parent, affiliated, or related entities, agents, or employees.
We are locked, loaded, and ready for launch on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. It is Thursday, the 10th of July, 2025, and we are ready to go for hour number 2. We're streaming on Rumble. We're streaming on X. We're streaming on YouTube, and we're streaming on a social media platform that begins with a F, but I don't like saying it. And we're streaming at the mothership, WYAB.com. Look, if you want to be part of the program this hour, the number is 601-879-0002. The text line is open. I got lots of texts I got to get to. I will get to them in the next segment, but not this one. That number is 601-879-5060. And look, we've got all this craziness with the floods, and we talked about how the helicopters and did their part. We got to talk about trains. I don't know how many of you realize how important rail is to America's economy, but honestly, it is, if it's not the biggest, it's the second most important mode of transportation that we have. The 18-wheelers probably do just as much, and it's definitely more localized, a little bit more maneuverable with the trailers, but you'll see trains running all over the place with all going back and forth, whether it's doing coal, whether it's doing denatured alcohol, other products. Rail is really big, and people don't realize this, but Mississippi's rail industry is what some of the best where I've ever lived around, and I've lived all over America. And I'd argue better than Chicago, man. I'm really impressed with our rail system. So when all of a sudden in 3 days we have 3 derailments, I kind of look around and be like, because rail is so safe. It's really overlooked by so many of us, and yet we're so dependent on it. With rail, when there is an accident, and a big one, like what happened in Ohio with that chemical spill, that was horrible. Luckily for us here in Mississippi, we didn't have that. The first one was on July 4th. And before I get into the July 4th derailment, there's different classes of railroads. You have your class 1s, which are your really big lines: Norfolk Southern, CNKC, Burlington Northern Santa Fe, Union Pacific. I'm sure I'm missing one of the other big class 1s, but there's really only 4 or 5 big ones that are really famous. Then you have local lines, class 2s, class 3s, class 4s, and how that breaks down, they're just smaller railways. They don't have nearly the long freight service that your class 1s have. But on Friday, 18 cars of a Norfolk Southern train derailed in Petal, Mississippi. 18 cars, that's a lot. And some denatured alcohol did spill from that, and that was reported by the Hattiesburg American. And so whenever a train derails, I always look at it like, that's kind of strange. But then the very next day, Saturday, July 5th, Canadian National, Kansas City, Yazoo subdivision, 13 cars of a train derailed in Glendora, Mississippi. In that incident, a tank car carrying benzene caught fire, leading to a mandatory evacuation of local residents. I didn't hear about this reported locally. Granted, that's far away from me, but still, something like that, you would think would make more of a news splash. Then, the very next day, on the 6th, 27 cars of a Grenada Railroad train derailed in Sardis, Mississippi. It's the 3rd significant derailment in the state in 3 days. And that was reported by the Oxford Eagle. What the heck is going on? I know things happen in threes. That's just superstition. But it seems to me that it's really strange. 3 derailments like that. It's impacted Amtrak. For those of us who have taken the train from Chicago to New Orleans or someplace in between, there's that line there. It's a profitable line for Amtrak. And it's been shut down. The NTSB is looking into it. And the thing about it is it's 3 different railroads, 2 class 1s and a class 2. Maybe it's a class 3. No leaks were reported in the 3rd derailment, but it does run along the same line as Canadian Northern's Yazoo subdivision line right there. And I can just tell you, as a kid who grew up by the tracks, we always used to, I'm not a foamer. I'm not one of who just runs out there with my camera to go take pictures of the trains. That's not what it's about. There's something going on. If you can truly just start disrupting the trains that make America run, that's a problem. Amtrak's halted, and there really hasn't been too much more. I started looking more and more for this, and not much more has been reported. But anytime that we can talk about trains on the Andrew Gosser show, we're going to. Hopefully, we don't hear about any more train derailments in Mississippi for a long, long time. The rest of this hour, I've just got a cornucopia of stuff I want to talk to. And we've got to talk about the 10 future astronauts and rocket wizards who decided to make a quote-unquote military-style coordinated attack on an ice facility in Dallas. Those people have been identified. And I just want to run through them. I'm going to actually tweet this before I go into this. I want to make sure that you all can follow along with me. If you go to @Andrew Gosser, Gasser on X, you can see the story there. And you can walk through these rocket wizards. The suspects are currently detained in Johnson County Jail in Texas on $5 million bonds. The first one, Cameron Arnold, also known as Autumn Hill, transgender, according to the criminal complaint. Jail records list Hill's sex as male, but he is identifying as female. And if you look, you can see that this person, they all have the same stare. I talked about it yesterday, the 10,000-foot stare where you're just like when you're at officer training school and you're getting yelled at and you're just looking forward and taking your yelling. The next one is Joy Gibson, who looks anything but joyous. Elizabeth Soto of Fort Worth, Texas. Enos Soto of Fort Worth, Texas. Again, these and some of them, I mean, I'm calling them kids. They're seems like they're under 21. They don't have the ages associated with them yet, and they're just going through it. But these kids, and some of them look a little bit older. Savannah Batten of Fort Worth. Man, that looks like a dude, even though she's identifying as a she. I mean, it's got facial hair. These kids were wearing complete tactical gear, black clothing, body armor, weapons, shot one cop in the neck. Marcella Ruda of Fort Worth, Texas. Seth Sykes of Kendale, Texas. Zachary Evans of Waxahachie, Texas. Nathan Bauman of College Station. All of them now in the jail on a $5 million bail for each one of them, which I think is great because we're sending a firm message that we're not going to tolerate this kind of behavior in America. Sadly, I don't think it's going to end. If you've seen anything that what Mayor Bass has done in Los Angeles, as ICE brings in horses and canine units, and they're actively clearing out parks that have been infested and taken over by MS-13 and Tren de la Agua gangs, they're cleaning them out. I tried to get some sound for this segment of just kind of like what's going on, because I always like to bring in the feel of what is being reported locally on the ground. That's always the best way to go. Preferably if it's not from a news organization. Independent journalists are always the way to go. Not that they're more believable, but at least they're not going to edit it out and frame it in such a way that's going to perceive a certain point of view. You don't want that. You want to see what's actually going on. So I'm looking for that, and I can't find it. But ICE is doing absolutely amazing things in Los Angeles and around the United States of America. They're taking back our cities, our streets, our parks. They were talking about in LA how a restaurant that had been in business for over 70 years threatened to shut down because of the crime. And the thing is elections have consequences. And when you elect inept leadership, like we did in Jackson for 8 years, it's going to take time for new people to come in to do a job. And as bad as Jackson is, and it's bad, I could not imagine how long it's going to take to clean up LA. First, they're going to have to actually elect somebody who wants to do something more than just virtue signal on MSNBC. and Karen Bass is a Karen. She has no desire for real law and order. She has no real desire to run the city of Los Angeles. She's been the mayor when the city burned to the ground and the fire hydrants didn't work and the fire department was run by a DEI LGBTQ warrior. She's been the mayor as this city has descended into chaos, ripe with gangs and drugs and violence, and is more worried about her police officers having diversity training rather than cleaning the crime off the streets. And you juxtapose LA and Jackson, and you look at the people who are inciting the violence, who are creating the violence, these kids. I call them kids. If you go look at their pictures, some of them don't look a lick over 18. There's one or two of them that look like they could be pushing 30. And that one guy with the face beard, who I think identifies as a female, looks mid-30s, looks like he got some gray hair there. Man, we are living in some crazy, crazy times. Aren't we grateful and thankful that we've got real leadership at the top of the country who's willing to stick their necks out and deploy the assets that need to be deployed when they need to be deployed to start cleaning up this mess? Think about this. If ICE took 7,000 people off the streets every day, which is a really high goal, and I don't ever expect it to get that high, it would take 4.5 years to reverse what they did with Biden, letting all those illegals into the country. We're going to be at this for a while. This is a long game. We've successfully, the United States has been successfully invaded thanks to the Biden administration. You've got an army of roughly 14 to 21 million people who are here illegally. Andy, they're not fighting and shooting guns. Well, no, they might not be. Not all of them anyways. But they are taking our resources away from Americans who need it. Our veterans, our homeless veterans who need help desperately but can't get shelter. But we'll give a family a $300 a day voucher to be in a hotel in New York City. And you see what's happening in New York City with that guy. Oh, there's so much on that dude. I'll leave him to tomorrow. He's just going to be, he's a special case. I'm just grateful and thankful that we got people out there who are willing to stand up for our country, especially for those of us who can't do it anymore. Maybe we did at one time, but that time's just moved on. When we get back, we'll continue to talk about this on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. need a little bit more cowbell in that. You're listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB, streaming on Rumble, streaming on X, streaming on YouTube, streaming on that social media platform that begins with a F, but we don't like talking about it, and at the mothership, WYAB.com. Look, I just got this. I was checking the text during the break, and people were asking about cloud seeding and weather manipulation, and this is something that I do want to explore and I do want to talk about, but I want to do so in a way that is based in science or it's based in law that I can go to and point to so that we can avoid the ridicule, so that we can avoid the scorn and we can avoid being mocked. Because if you just go up there and talk about weather manipulation, you're going to be looked at like you're crazy. You are. Even if you know it's real, even if you believe it, and you can sit there and if you cannot talk about it in a way that is scientifically proven or has been debated in a meaningful place, you can have the right. I like to say it all the time. You can have all the right answers, but if you won't have people who will follow your lead, who even if you have the right answer, it doesn't matter if you're right. The person can be wrong, but if he's got people following him, then they're going to have all the answers that they want to hear. And the goal of this show is always to, number one, put God first in everything that I do, and I pray that I do that. But number two, do so in a way that provides you real meaningful tools, equipping the saints, just like Ephesians says. So, people were talking about weather manipulation in Texas and was it happening? And there are stories that are out there that have reported about that. But I wanted to go in take a different point on this because I didn't want to trust the news media. I wanted to go to either a scientific body that will talk about this, and they are out there, but they never really are sourced or cited appropriately to where a way that I can deliver that to you. But if a legislative body passes a bill that basically outlaws everything that people who are claiming weather manipulation is occurring, then I think we've got a winner there. Now, the news source that I'm citing this from is not the greatest, but it's the one that seemed to be the most succinct, and it does have it does cite high credible people inside that source. So forgive me if I source CBS News in West Palm Beach, Florida, CBS 12. But on June 20th, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the Senate Bill 56 into law, imposing penalties up to 5 years in prison and $100,000 in fines for anyone attempting to geoengineer or weather modify the weather, including cloud seeding. The bill, sponsored by State Senator Alina Garcia of Miami, aims to address concerns about chemtrails. And I want to say something about chemtrails. If you remember yesterday, I said, look, chemtrails are not contrails. And it's really important because this story comes out and says what I told you 3 days ago. So I'm not crazy. I'm not blowing smoke up your rear end. I'm telling you the truth. While chemtrails are often confused with contrails, Mick West, a science writer and fellow for the Committee on Skeptical Inquiry, clarified the distinction. While most of the most important thing about cloud seeding is that it doesn't actually leave trails in the air. What people are pointing to and what people are looking for in the sky are contrails. And I've been telling people this. So when you see a plane flying at 35,000 feet and you see the contrails coming out the back, that is the difference between the heat of the exhaust meeting the cold air. And that's what's causing that cloud to form behind it. But that's not what cloud seeding really is. West said. He explained that the confusion arises from the mixing of geoengineering conspiracy theories with the actual practice of cloud seeding. And that is where the ridicule, mockery, and scorn comes in. So if you're out there saying, you see all the trails going across the sky, every pilot, every person who flies for a living is going to say, yeah, that's a contrail. Yeah, I almost went full 3-1, and that would have been a bad idea. But if you're just seeing the stuff coming out of the back end, that white stuff, that's not cloud seeding. Despite the concerns, cloud seeding has been practiced safely for decades, says CEO and founder, and I'm not even going to try to say his name. Well, I guess I will. Augustus Dorico, CEO and founder of Rainmaker Technologies. There's 80 years of data on why it's safe, on how and at what quantities we're using it. Over hundreds of thousands of acres at a time. There are no adverse ecological effects, says Dorico. Well, you might say that as a cloud seeder, but the state of Florida has decided that your services are no longer required. You're fired. And I guess if nothing else comes out of this segment, and wow, people are fired up about this, my goodness gracious. If you see the chemtrail or the contrails coming out the back of the plane, that's not the seeding. Cloud seeding is actually invisible. And unfortunately, so many of us get sucked into that, and then that's used against us. In Florida, there are currently no ongoing cloud seeding or geoengineering projects. But do you know where there was geoengineering? And do you know where there was cloud seeding? Texas. I'll pull up the story. I don't have it in front of me, but I'll pull it up during the next break and have it for you on the other side of it. But they were cloud seeding in Texas. Does it mean that cloud seeding had an effect on it? There's no one-for-one direct causation effect there. But it's enough to make you wonder. And then I wonder, was there cloud seeding in Chicago with the crazy flood there? And again, I should have pulled up and tweeted it, but to watch the flooding that occurred in Texas where it just popped up and didn't move, almost the exact same thing happened in Chicago. Now, I haven't looked in Arkansas or New Mexico or North Carolina yet to see if that same thing happened, that same type of anomaly happened. But it sure would be interesting to find out, wouldn't it? And again, you can talk about this without getting emotional, without ridiculing somebody, without scorning someone, mocking them, making them feel foolish and silly. And for those of you who do believe in cloud seeding, I hope you do understand that the streaks you see coming out the back end of the aircraft, that is a product of heat, a product of hot meeting cold and creating a fog. But that doesn't mean that you're not right, that cloud seeding could be happening. But that's the science behind it. And we need to run, and I know I can hear my buddy jumping, trust the science. No, not Fauci science. But that's a real scientific principle. You could go look it up on Rumble. You could go look it up on YouTube, learn about when hot air meets cold air, how that happens, because it's important that we understand that. And sadly, you know what? We're not even teaching that to our kids anymore. We're not teaching science in school like we went through school. Those days are long gone, ladies and gentlemen. So that's from CBS 12. And then I also pulled up this, and I tweeted this too. The Senate Bill 56, geoengineering and weather modification activities. And it just has the people who signed it. It overwhelmingly passed the Senate, the state Senate of Florida, and the state House of Florida. And it was signed by America's Governor, Ron DeSantis. People are asking me if I'm supporting DeSantis for president in 2028. No. But when somebody does good stuff, you've got to acknowledge them and give them their props. And we will continue to do that on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Shit. Oh, yeah. Time just keeps on slipping. Goes by really quick here on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Hey, look, if you haven't followed me on X yet, would you please? My handle is just at Andrew Gosser, spell Gosser right, Gasser. If you wouldn't mind following me, maybe giving me a retweet every now and then, I sure would appreciate it. If you're listening to me on Rumble, YouTube, or that other place, wouldn't mind following my channel and letting me know that and give me a retweet on, or share the stream. I would certainly appreciate that. During the break, Dee Dee from YouTube says the trails that we are worried about linger and float through linger and float through our skies. Those are filled with heavy metals and presumably can block the sun, as well as other nefarious reasons, I'm sure. Well, I'm gonna actually. There's a video out there, and I didn't have enough time to find it right now. But when you see the plane flying through the sky, and hopefully this makes sense, and if it doesn't, I respect it, but I'll come back with even more scientific data tomorrow to prove this. As the hot air interacts with the cold air, that's what forms the contrail that you're seeing, and that's basically hot air meeting cold air in the exhaust. So whatever's in the exhaust of the burnt jet fuel, I think it's JP5 is what most people use. That's what's going to be creating that in the mist there, and as the air more equals out with the temperature more equals out from the exhaust into the cold air, that contrail is going to go away. But I see your point that, if they're cloud seeding and they're putting all sorts of other craziness in the air, like, people don't know this, but the most heavily, or the thing that polluted the air the most taking off was the space shuttle and the solid rocket motors. Those are just like aluminum shreds going through the atmosphere. Look it up. The aluminum that those solid rocket motors use, and it's basically the same thing used in like your Sidewinder missile or your AMRAAM. Same technology, not nearly as bad as a solid rocket motor from a space shuttle or the Artemis project, but it's still pretty crazy. If they're burning liquids, it's so much cleaner for the environment, but still not great. It's better just to have the trees going, and that's why quite frankly, foresting and trees are so important because trees are the number one way that we clean our air. But we don't really even talk about that anymore. But I hope that answers your stuff for right now, Miss Dee Dee, and we can have a whole discussion on that. And I will try to put something together tonight because I want to make sure that we can all go out there and talk about, hey, this is what's happening. You know, what is actually being injected? Because the other thing that another text just says, Andy, you know, are those United Airlines flights flying overhead, or is that a private airplane actually cloud seeding? That's a great point. You know, the difference between are we using our national airline carriers to cloud seed and weather manipulate? I would say no, but I could be wrong. Are there aircraft out there that are designed to do that? Absolutely. We've already proven it with this company from that Dorico guy talking about it. Look, that's something that we're not going to be able to finish off today, but we'll definitely keep the discussion open, and we'll do so in a way where it doesn't bring in mockery, scorn, or ridicule. And we'll get there in the end. I'm sure we will. But this just broke during the break, and I do want to talk about this because this show has been on the cutting edge of societal evolution, and it's getting better and better. And when we talk about something, and then I go home and I just scroll through news stories, and I see all these big time webcasters and podcasters talking about what we talked about first, that makes me feel really good. And this judge in New Hampshire just restricted birthright citizenship. This should not be a surprise to anybody. Keep calm and carry on. This will be decided in October by the Supreme Court. And this judge feels like they need to be the main character of the story, and they're not. A federal judge in New Hampshire granted class action status Thursday to a lawsuit seeking to protect babies who were be denied birthright citizenship by the Trump administration, and granted a temporary block of the president's order restricting birthright citizenship from going into effect throughout the country. I'm looking for the federal judge's name, but it doesn't say. Yep, it doesn't say. Oh, Judge LaPlante is the name. Judge Joseph LaPlante on Thursday morning said that the plaintiffs would suffer irreparable harm by being denied birthright citizenship. Here are these judges going up and making rules that they have no basis on making up rules for. And we can expect this to happen again. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, we should all be partaking in the No Kings protests. But the No Kings protest isn't about President Trump or the executive office. It's about the men and women who wear black robes and think they're above everybody else. These judges. Those are the real kings. And especially these left-leaning justices who just go out there and insert themselves into the stories, trying to make themselves the main character. I mean, this guy's going to, Judge LaPlante, he's going to be rolling big and bold with all of his buddies tonight when they're talking about it. But at the same time, it's to be expected. There is no other country in the world that I am aware of, and I've looked. Like, if you're an American citizen and you go to Mexico, well, if you're a woman and you go to Mexico 9 months pregnant and your baby is born in Mexico, he or she is not a Mexican citizen. She's an American. Just because you're in a country does not make you an automatic citizen. And like we've discussed plenty of times on this story before, birthright citizenship were for the slaves who were brought over against their will. It was right after the Civil War. This isn't even like any type of controversial statement. This is what that was written for. And for people to try to all of a sudden manipulate it and change it into something that it's not is quite frankly disgusting and manipulative. But that's what the left does. That's what they do. They're known for that. twisting and making us go look in ways that we don't have to do, that are unnatural. And this is not surprising to me. I'm like, my texts are all of a sudden blowing up about it. We shouldn't be shocked. And that's not it's some, and even some right-leaning or conservative thinkers are upset about this. We shouldn't be shocked by it. But now they're saying that the Supreme Court ruling that was a big victory a week ago, we were all celebrating and being happy about it. Now saying it was an awful decision because it allowed this to happen. Like I tell so many of you who like want to run for local office and want to, politics is a long game. So you have to play it. And you know, right now, and like people remember when Amy Coney Barrett wrote the decision, in fact, and people, you know, Brother Rick, remember what you wrote to me? I can't say it on the radio, I'll get fined. But it's true. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be the right way, but it takes time and it hurts. Man, it hurts. As someone who's gone through the meat grinder, uh, man, it stinks. It's horrible. I'm talking from experience here. I know I'm saying I, me, but I'm talking from experience here when I tell you that things like this happen. But the ball is being matriculated down the field in the right direction. We don't want to fumble. We don't want to pick six, but it's going in the right direction. And you know, the fact that the defense made a play after we just picked up a first down and now it's 2nd and 7, we shouldn't be upset. I feel really, quite frankly, really good about this. It's not going to stop the deportations. It's not going to stop any of that. ICE will continue to detain criminals who are here illegally. And at some point in October, we'll have a decision. And if we lose that, well, then we can go back and circle up and say, hey, we're going to have to find a new way to do that. But I genuinely believe if the Supreme Court allows, quote unquote, anchor babies to be here, people who came here just to have their children so they could be American citizens, and they're not American citizens themselves. They don't really appreciate America. They would rather fly their own flags of origin instead of supporting the American Constitution and the American flag. Well, then we're in trouble. At that point, we're in trouble. Because at that point, the invasion that took place over the last 4 years under the cover of COVID and everything else, we're going to be victims to it. We're going to be stuck with it. I don't want that. And in the meantime, you got to worry about these people like who in Texas who attacked that ICE facility. Those aspiring rocket scientists and astronauts, as Clay would say. And I say this almost every day, and I sincerely mean this. WYAB has the best lineup in Mississippi from morning to night. We are uncensored. I don't have the station manager coming in here and saying, Andy, you can't talk about this. You can talk. We don't take any state money, so we can say what we want about the state government. We're a little old radio station out of Flora, Mississippi. And if you like what you're hearing, please make sure you support our sponsors and let them know that you're listening to WYAB. It would mean a lot to all of us. You're listening to the Andrew Gossett Show on 103.9 WYAB. We're going to take our last break. We will be right back. Oh, yeah. It's the Andrew Gossett Show on 103.9, getting ready to take her on home. We've had a good show today. I did so much mission planning and show prep. You can tell the military me, right? Mission planning. Did so much show prep, mission planning for Epstein, and we didn't even really talk about it that much. And I'm kind of glad, because you just sit there and harp on something and wail on something and nag on something. It's not that it doesn't need to happen, and it's not that we're letting it go, but you need to let it breathe. And I genuinely think that we're not finished with the Epstein story by a long shot. I think there's a lot more out there that will come out one way or another. Some of you have given me some really interesting texts, and I'm like, let's keep that close to the vest, and we will. But it's got to be something that when it breaks, we'll be there to cover it, and we'll definitely put forward ideas and theories and plausibilities as required. We'll do that together as a show and an audience. Really appreciate the participation, especially in the chat today, man. It was awesome. Between YouTube and X and Rumble, I didn't see too many on Facebook, but that was awesome. And then the interaction that we have on the text line is great. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, because you help make the show. I look forward to getting up every morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock, doing show prep. Before I go to bed at night, I'll do a little bit of show prep. And it just makes the show so much better when you all are interacting. And I'm grateful and thankful for that. I'll tell you what, this Texas story too, with FEMA not responding and the news media trying to make it sound like FEMA was caught with its pants down. You want to see FEMA caught with its pants down? Look at North Carolina and Hurricane Milton, and what happened in Florida, where FEMA wasn't going ahead and taking care of those people who had Trump flags and Trump signs in their yard. That's the real crime. That's the real story right there. And you don't have any of that happening now. What you have is a bunch of whining, sniveling CNN anchors who are trying to make themselves relevant and the main characters of the story. You know what's so beautiful about what's happening in Texas? It's not even, Trump isn't even part of the story. He just said whatever you need and signed it away, and off it went. And people there are taking care of people. I saw a story today about HEB. I guess it's a big grocery store down there. They were rolling out supplies and rescue effort in the rescue efforts. And I think that's awesome. That's how it's supposed to be. It's not some big invasion force from Washington, D.C. descending upon your town because you're in trouble. It's because we know each other, and our states take care of states. And our neighboring states help take care of us too when we need help. Arkansas sending the helos, Nebraska sending the team in. Even though I bet you as we go and find out more about that task force from Nebraska that came in and helped Texas, I'm almost certain we're going to find out that wasn't necessarily how it was supposed to work. I'm letting you know right now, I'm working really closely with some people to try to get subject matter experts on the task force, the FEMA task force. I want to make sure that it's all above board, that they can come on, that they're not going to get in trouble for coming on. And I don't want to say sources. I want to be able to let you hear from the horse's mouth, much like when we had Lieutenant Colonel Manis on talking about the massive ordnance penetrator bomb. We knew about that. And again, we had experts on. That's where we need to come from. That's where we need to fight our battles from. Because if we're, number one, walking with God and we're fighting from a sound mind and discipline, we're going to win the argument, much like the contrail thing or the cloud seeding thing. But if you just run in there and just try to blow everything all up at once, it just never works. I've done that. I've tried that. It doesn't work at all. We'll see you next time.